Hello, thrill seekers, and welcome back to the channel. As the nights grow longer and a distinct chill fills the air, we gather once more to celebrate the most haunting time of the year. Halloween is upon us, a time when the veil between worlds is at its thinnest, and stories of the strange and unsettling crawl out from the shadows. Tonight, we're not just telling stories. We're crafting an experience. We'll explore how the masters of horror build that heart-pounding tension, that feeling of dread that keeps you looking over your shoulder, and how they provide that split second of relief before plunging you back into the darkness. So dim the lights, get comfortable, and prepare yourself. We have 3 tales to share, each designed to linger long after the video ends. Are you ready? Let's begin. Our first story is called The Last Hayride. Every year, the old Miller farm hosted a Halloween hayride, famous for its thrilling scares. But this year, a new attraction was added, a final late-night ride exclusively for the brave. A group of teenagers, full of bravado, bought their tickets. The tractor rumbled to life, its engine a low growl in the silent fields, pulling a single wagon into the moonless dark. The usual costumed actors were absent. The path was unnervingly quiet, broken only by the rustle of dry cornstalks. They passed scarecrows that looked a little too real, their stitched smiles seeming to widen as the wagon rolled by. Then the tractor sputtered and died. The driver, a figure they hadn't seen clearly, simply climbed down and walked into the corn, vanishing. At first, they laughed it off as part of the act, but minutes stretched into an hour. The cold began to bite, and a new sound joined the rustling corn, a soft, rhythmic dragging. One by one, they started hearing whispers just at the edge of hearing, whispers that sounded like their own names. Panic began to set in. This is a perfect example of building tension. The familiar setting of a hayride becomes unsettling through isolation and the unknown. The silence is more terrifying than a jump scare. The slow realization that this isn't part of the show creates a rising dread. What do you think happens when the dragging sound gets closer? That's the release, a moment to breathe and question, just before the next wave of fear hits. Let's continue their story. One of the boys, trying to be brave, called out, "Very funny, guys. You can come out now." His voice cracked, swallowed by the immense dark field. The dragging sound stopped. For a moment, there was absolute silence. That's the release, the brief pause where your heart is in your throat, waiting. And then, a single tall scarecrow at the edge of the cornfield slowly turned its burlap sack head to look directly at them. It wasn't on a post. It was standing. The group screamed. Chaos erupted as they scrambled off the wagon, scattering in different directions into the suffocating maze of corn. The sounds of their panicked flight were soon replaced by individual, short-lived screams, each one farther away than the last. Finally, only one girl, Sarah, remained huddled in the wagon, too terrified to move. The dragging sound started again, slow, deliberate, and getting closer. She squeezed her eyes shut, listening as it circled the wagon once, twice, before stopping right beside her. She held her breath, waiting for the end. But instead of a touch, she heard the tractor's engine roar back to life. Peeking through her fingers, she saw the driver was back, a tall, silent figure. Without a word, he drove the wagon back to the brightly lit entrance of the farm. The cheerful music and laughing families felt like a world away. As she stumbled off, shaking, the driver tipped his hat beneath the brim. His face was crudely stitched from burlap, with button eyes and a jagged, smiling mouth. He just winked, then turned the tractor around, heading back into the darkness for the next last hayride. The true horror isn't just the scare. It's the return to normalcy, leaving the victim to forever question what was real and what wasn't. Our second tale tonight is titled The Old Portrait. A young couple, Alex and Ben, moved into a beautiful historic house they'd bought for a steal. The only catch was that the previous owner, a reclusive artist, had left everything behind. In the dusty attic, they found a stunning, life-sized portrait of a woman with sad, piercing eyes. It was signed, "My dearest Lenora." They decided to hang it in the main hallway. At first, they joked about her. "Lenora's watching us," Alex would say. But soon the jokes stopped. Small things started happening. A book left on the coffee table would be found back on the shelf. The faint scent of lavender would drift through the hall at night. Ben noticed that sometimes from the corner of his eye, it looked like Lenora's expression in the portrait had changed, the sadness in her eyes deepening, the faint line of her mouth tightening. This is a masterclass in psychological tension. Nothing overt has happened. There are no ghosts jumping out. The horror is subtle, creeping into the everyday. The pacing is slow, allowing doubt and unease to build. The viewer, like the characters, starts to question their own perceptions. Is it just their imagination, or is there something genuinely wrong with the house, with that portrait? The release comes from the mundane explanations they give themselves, but each new, unexplainable event chips away at their sanity. The turning point came one evening when they had friends over. One of them, a history buff, stared at the portrait for a long time. "This is incredible," she said, "but who is it? I can't find any record of an artist by this name or a famous subject named Lenora from this area." Later that night, after their friends left, Alex was walking down the hall and glanced at the painting. He froze. A single glistening tear was tracing a path down the painted cheek of Lenora. He called for Ben, his voice trembling. As Ben rounded the corner, he saw it too, but it wasn't just the tear. Her expression was no longer sad. It was one of pure, unadulterated fury. And her hand, which had been resting demurely at her side, was now raised, her painted fingers curled as if gripping something tightly. That's when they heard it, a scraping sound coming from inside the wall, right behind the portrait. It was the sound of fingernails dragging against old wood. They fled the house that night and never returned. The true horror here is the slow transformation, the inanimate becoming animate. The build-up of small oddities culminates in an undeniable, terrifying reality. The pacing accelerates rapidly at the end, from quiet and ease to outright terror, leaving no room for a sigh of relief, only the chilling final image. For our final story, we have the trick-or-treater who stayed. On Halloween night, old Mr. Gable sat in his armchair, waiting for the doorbell. He loved Halloween, the cheerful shouts of trick-or-treat, and the parade of creative costumes. The evening wore on, and the flow of children dwindled to a trickle. Just as he was about to turn off the porch light, the doorbell rang one last time. He opened it to find a small child dressed as a classic sheet ghost. The costume was simple, just a white sheet with 2 eye holes cut out. "Trick or treat," a tiny, muffled voice said. Mr. Gable smiled and dropped a handful of candy into the child's bag. "Happy Halloween," he said. But the child didn't leave. It just stood there on his porch silent. "Is that not enough?" Mr. Gable asked, reaching for more candy. The little ghost just shook its head. "My feet are tired," the muffled voice said. "May I come in and rest for just a moment?" Mr. Gable was a kind man. It was a cold night, and the child seemed so small. Against his better judgment, he hesitated, then stepped aside. Just for a minute, then the small figure glided past him into the living room. Here, the tension is created by breaking a social norm. A trick-or-treater is supposed to take the candy and leave. This simple, unexpected request immediately feels wrong. The slow pacing, the long pauses, the isolation of the old man, it all combines to create a deep sense of foreboding. We, the audience, are screaming, "Don't let it in." But the character's kindness becomes his potential downfall. Mr. Gable closed the door, a sudden unease settling over him. "Would you like some hot chocolate?" he offered, trying to be a good host. The little ghost stood in the center of his living room and slowly shook its head. "I'm waiting for my parents," it said. "They told me to wait inside the last house I visited. They're coming to pick me up." An hour passed. No car pulled up. No one knocked on the door. The little ghost hadn't moved an inch. "Son," Mr. Gable said gently, "I think your parents might be lost. Maybe we should call someone." The figure finally turned its head, the black eye holes seeming to stare right through him. "Oh, they're not lost," the muffled voice replied, a strange new confidence in its tone. "They're just like me. They've been waiting a very, very long time." A cold dread washed over Mr. Gable as he noticed for the first time that the white sheet wasn't cloth. It was old and yellowed like parchment, and it didn't flow or wrinkle like fabric. And from the bottom of the sheet there was no sign of feet. It just hovered an inch above his Persian rug. Who are you?" he whispered. The figure lifted its arms, and the sheet began to rise. "We're the ones who trick-or-treated one year and were never invited in." The voice, now clear and ancient, echoed in the room. "So we wait. We wait inside until the next Halloween to join the others who knock on your door." Mr. Gable could only watch, paralyzed, as the sheet rose higher, revealing the shimmering, empty space where a child should have been. The last thing he heard before the emptiness rushed forward was a chorus of faint, childish whispers from every dark corner of his house, all saying "trick or treat." And there we have it, 3 stories to haunt your Halloween night. We've seen how tension and release can turn a simple hayride into a nightmare, how psychological dread can make a painting terrifying, and how breaking a simple tradition can invite something unimaginable into your home. Horror is an art form, a delicate dance between fear and relief, and these tales are a testament to its power. I hope these stories have sent a few shivers down your spine and given you something to think about the next time you hear a strange noise in the dark. Thank you so much for joining me in the shadows tonight. If you enjoyed these stories and want more content that explores the dark and mysterious, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It truly helps us grow and bring more tales to you. Until next time, stay safe, check behind you, and have a wonderfully spooky Halloween.